Howdy. Welcome to John's D&D Vlog, episode number 70. This will be my second episode on Magic the Gathering. In episode number 69, I praised Magic for being innovative and clever. But as enjoyable as I find Magic to be, there are some pretty big things about it that should probably leave people a little concerned, and they mostly deal with money. I found out about Magic one night when I was playing D&D with some friends. I showed up that night, and some of the group had a Magic game going on. It looked really interesting. When I first saw the cards, it reminded me of how I felt when I saw D&D's 20-sided dice for the very first time. Then they explained the game to me. The cards are parts to a game, and the better cards you get, the more powerful your deck will be. The more packs of cards you buy, the better the odds that you'll get those better cards, they told me. To which I replied, "Wow, what a racket." It was obvious at the very first glance that this game was designed to rip every last cent out of the pockets of everyone who played it. It was obvious. I loved it, though. It was a fun game, and it was such an easy idea. I was amazed no one had ever done it before. So I very obediently went out and started gathering up cards. I bought far more of them than I should have. Gratefully, my wife was pretty understanding with me. One day I spoke with a friend who showed me some cards he'd picked up, and I told him that I wanted to try and trade some of them from him that evening. Unfortunately, when the evening showed up, I couldn't trade with him. He'd left the cards on the passenger seat of his car, and some guy had taken a rock, smashed his window, and stole the cards. This happened about 28 years ago, before any of the cards had become really valuable. Back then, you could get a Black Lotus for under $100, and revised dual lands were going for far less than $10 each. People were frantic to get the cards anyway. For the record, here's the main card my friend had that the thief was so desperate to get. It's currently going for about $3 or $4 on eBay. It's almost 30 years after the fact, and it's still not a highly sought-after card. The thief did hundreds of dollars of damage to a card just to get a $3 card. There are a few concepts about Magic that you should probably understand. Money really matters in this game. If you can get the right cards, the odds of you winning increase greatly. And people will pay a lot of money to get those best cards. Some of these cards are worth thousands of dollars now. Money can bring out the worst in people. And as it so happens, it's also the main driving force behind the game. And anyone who thinks that money isn't the main driving force behind this game simply doesn't know it very well. What sorts of problems can happen to a guy in regards to money and gambling? Theft, addiction, paranoia, greed, competition, debt, bankruptcy, bad manners, desperation, pride, credit card problems, divorce. Welcome to Magic the Gathering. For the record, if you think I'm exaggerating, ask around. I'm sure all of the older players have some very interesting stories to tell you. When I first moved to Japan, I left my cards back home with my family. I assumed that I wouldn't play for a while, but a couple of years later I began to miss them, so I had my family ship them out to me. When they arrived, a bunch of them were missing, perhaps 200 or so. Someone had gone through my cards at the post office and pulled out all the cards that were worth anything, and shipped what was left to me. If I had those cards now, they'd be worth several $1,000s. There are more than a few people who refer to Magic as cardboard crack. What is it about this game that makes a whole bunch of people go a little nuts? Well, let's see. Let's compare D&T to Magic economically and see how they differ. How much does it cost for a group of 6 guys to start playing? The basic set of rule books and a module and maybe some dice will cost you about $120. To buy one pre-made commander deck for each of those 6 people, it's about $40 each, so you're talking about $240. Do you need to buy more stuff to keep having fun for years and years and years? Not necessarily. If you have a creative DM, you don't need to at all. Yes, very definitely. Does the amount of fun you have increase if you spend more money? Not necessarily. Yes, very definitely. Do new players who join your group have to spend money in order to play with you? Not necessarily. Yes, very definitely. After 10 years, does the value of your stuff change? Not really. Sometimes immensely. Sometimes it changes the moment I pull it out of the wrapper. Magic has all the fun of a very good game, all the drama of a lottery, all the investment potential of a stock portfolio, all the buzz of a drug addiction, and all the temptation of a bank heist. And last but not least, a yearly tournament with a $1 million cash prize pool. The winner gets $50,000. P.S. I wasn't kidding about the bank heist part. I was going to put up some security footage of a robbery that happened at a game shop I sometimes go to. I never received permission to show it, but honestly speaking, just a quick search on either YouTube or Google will show you lots of evidence. There's something about Magic that makes people go a little nuts. So have I scared you yet? So, assuming that you've now heard the worst and you still feel like giving the game a go, here are a bunch of suggestions for you on how to get your hands on the cards. Before you start collecting, you might want to ask yourself, what kind of player did you want to be? There are several sorts. I'm only going to really talk about two, the tournament player and the casual player. How you will collect your cards will change pretty drastically depending on which sort of player you'd like to be. There are a whole bunch of different sorts of Magic tournaments out there. In some tournaments, you'll be given cards to play with. For these sorts of tournaments, all you need to do to play is just to show up with perhaps some dice and a way to keep track of your life total. That's it. I also highly suggest that you bring your own card sleeves and a box to hold your cards in. If there's a lot of guys at the tournament, they may run out. The price for these tournaments is a little higher because the price for your cards is in the entry fee. The type of these tournaments I enjoy the most are called booster drafts. The tournament format I was mostly going to focus on, though, is called Standard Constructed. This is the most common sort of tournament around. When you play in DCI tournaments, they keep track of your score, and you can look up your local or national ranking later on the Wizards of the Coast homepage. When all is said and done, the best tournament players don't actually need many cards to play. Honestly speaking, to do well in the tournaments, you could theoretically get by with only 75 cards. 60 cards in your deck and 15 cards in your sideboard. Most Magic matches consist of up to 3 games. You can switch cards from your sideboard into your deck between these games. That's what a sideboard is for. It's so you can specialize the game as you play it against your opponent. The thing about those 75 cards, though, is they all better work pretty well together, and they can't be more than 2 years old. Standard constructed tournaments usually only allow cards that have been printed in the last 2 years' worth of sets. Many older cards could actually be used, but only if a same named card had been printed in one of these newer sets. Doing this keeps the environment constantly shifting. There will never be just one deck that will forever dominate the tournament scene. And because it's always changing, players will all be on more equal footing, the rookies as well as the veterans. And honestly speaking, in a constantly changing environment like Magic has, there really isn't such a thing as a veteran. Not in this game anyway. Everyone's a rookie. Constantly changing the environment also allows Magic to keep making and selling brand new cards. Every set that they publish will also be accompanied by a group of players who will be interested in buying it, simply to stay current in the tournament scene. If you're a tournament player, though, be prepared. Every 2 years, sets are considered too old and are rotated out of the environment. You won't be able to use some of your cards anymore in tournaments, and eventually all of your cards will become unusable in tournaments. If you'd like to see what 75 cards you should buy, here's a page by Wizards of the Coast that shows the deck lists of current decks that are doing very well. I looked up the price to just buy the cards for one of these decks from a store, and it was over $400. I don't know if this price is average, but I do know that there are some newer decks going for over $1,000. So in other words, you're only going to need 75 cards, but be prepared to pay through the nose to get them. Okay, that was all about the guys who want to be super serious about the game and who want to try and win tournaments. What about the guys like me, the ones who just want to hang out with friends and family and play games? How much do we need to spend? Well, are you going to be content with just one deck? Will you be content using the same deck over and over and over again? Also, if your friends are perfecting their decks and you start losing all the time, how will you react? Are you going to start perfecting your decks as well just to stay competitive with them? Congratulations, you'll be spending a lot of money as well. You may even end up spending more money than the tournament players. The best way I found of gathering up a collection is to find someone who's getting out of the game and to buy his collection. Often this ends up being the cheapest alternative, depending on who's doing the selling. You should be careful though. A lot of people who are offering deals like this have gone through their collections, pulled out everything that has any value and sold them separately. And what you end up with is a box full of nothing that much matters. You can also buy new, but this tends to be expensive. If you buy a pack of 15 cards for about $5, you're paying roughly 35 cents per card. The bonus is that you will get the rare cards, and there's also a chance that you will get very expensive cards in your pack. It might be the cheapest way to get the best cards, quality, but it isn't the best way to get a lot of cards, quantity. Also, you can get newer cards a little cheaper if you buy them by the booster box. There are many sites on the net that offer these booster boxes of cards for sale. You can also purchase them from local card shops and game stores. Be prepared though. Here's a list of feedback that buyers sent into Amazon after they bought some of these booster boxes of cards online. Apparently there's a thing going on now where when you buy boxes online, the boxes have already been opened, the packs have already been searched through, and the best cards have already been removed. What is left is scooped back into the open packs with other cards to replace the ones that were stolen. The entire box is then glued shut again and resealed. The buyers have been referring to this type of theft as repacks. If it had only happened once or twice, I doubt I would even mention it here, but when I looked through the feedback, what I saw was that it was occurring in over 20% of all the sales mentioned. Also, if you're thinking that a big portion of these incidences are just the buyers themselves saying that they were stolen from, but they hadn't been actually, yes, you're right, that is a possibility. But on the other hand, if that really is what is happening, then the over 20% theft rate still remains the truth, because in each incident a theft had occurred, either by the thieves themselves or by the other thieves who were simply trying to defraud Amazon out of money. Over 20% of all these sales listed on this page ended in theft. That's a lot of stealing. What about buying single cards from online sales companies? Is there any danger there? Yes, I'll keep this one short, but what's happening on some auction sites, like eBay, is that people are simply stealing cards from other people and then fencing them through these internet auction sites. When you buy cards online, there is a chance that you are buying stolen goods. On the flip side, honest sellers also have to beware. There's a thing now where people are buying expensive cards from eBay and other such sites. They copy the cards with expensive copying equipment back home and then demand to get their money back, and then send the copy back to the original seller, and they keep the original card. When I was selling cards, the rules were such on eBay so that you had to give people money back, even if you stated before the sale began that no returns would be accepted. eBay automatically took money out of your PayPal account and gave it to these buyers. No appeals process was available that I could see. What about Wizards of the Coast themselves? Are they being honest with their customers? The short answer to this is a resounding yes. But there's also a longer version of the answer, which is also yes, but probably doesn't include the exclamation point. Decades ago, there was some buzz floating around the internet that Wizards of the Coast was thinking about selling not just packs of cards, but also individual cards. If you wanted some particular rare card but couldn't find it in a pack, you could just order it from Wizards of the Coast themselves at a really good price, right? In response to that, the groups I belonged to at the time simply screamed back, no way. If they had started doing that, selling tiny little squares of cardboard for huge amounts of money, Wizards of the Coast would have made huge profits in a way that the players of the day saw as unfair. So no one was interested, and that was the last I'd heard of it until recently. Currently, there are several ways to buy cards in packs. Here's the data for both of the newest Dungeons & Dragons sets, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms and Battle for Baldur's Gate. As you look at the data, let's see if you can see what I see. You may notice something interesting here as you look at this data. The packs that are offering more cards, but fewer rares, are cheaper. The packs offering more rares, but fewer total cards, are more expensive. Wizards of the Coast is trying to increase their profits by offering you more rares, but selling you fewer total cards. This, I assume, greatly reduces their printing costs and increases their profit margins. In return, you're getting something of value. You're getting cards that have a greater resale value. In October of 2019, with the Throne of Eldraine set, a new type of booster pack became available. These collector booster packs offer even more rares and more specially printed cards, foils and such. These sorts of special cards tend to sell for a higher price later on. When we look at the data for these boxes, you can see the new trend of rarer and fewer for more even more clearly. 2 decades ago, when it seemed that Wizards of the Coast wanted to sell single cards, the customers weren't willing. They seem to have found a different way to do the same thing, though. By offering rares in this method, they can get paid much more for selling the individual cards in each pack. This is, in effect, the same thing they were offering to do a long time ago. It's just been disguised enough where people don't really realize what's happening. P.S. They recently came out with another set that really shows the rarer and fewer for more trend even more obviously. So it seems to be something of a compromise. The players have to pay more per card, but the cards they receive have a greater tendency to be worth something in the secondary market. Still though, think of the profits they're making now. They're selling tiny squares of cardboard for $5 each. My thoughts on the game are the same now as they were when I first saw the game almost 30 years ago. I love it, but wow, what a racket. I found a collector's box of the new Dungeons & Dragons set here online in Japan for a very, very low price. It was almost half of the new price, so I picked it up. I was thinking I would let you look through it as I opened it, but there are already a lot of people who do that. People show box openings all of the time on YouTube, so I thought I would do it a little differently. I watched 5 box openings of the same sort of box, and I analyzed them all along with my own opening. Here's what I found out. This is me right here. This is what I drew. But then I went on the YouTube and I found 5 other people who also had opened booster boxes. I'll put the URL data for their box opening video in the works cited section at the very end of this video. But anyway, I just wanted to show what 6 different box openings look like and how it varied from one to another. As you can see up here from the value of the cards that were pulled, the MTG North guys really did better than everybody else. You figure brand new, if some of these boxes were costing $240, the MTG North guys were the only ones to get their money's worth. Everybody else got far less value than the actual cost of the box itself. When I bought my box, I was able to find a really cheap one on the internet. I bought my box long after the set came out, so that's probably one of the reasons why the box I bought was so cheap. So keeping that in mind, these guys won, but so did I. I got a lot of stuff I really liked, and I got my value out of the box. But anyway, these are the top 10 pulls that everybody got. I mean, just this old Gnawbone here that the MTG North guys pulled, that's $40 more than anybody else got in their boxes. So, I mean, 40 bucks of this is just from that one card. But anyway, you can see who got the most mythics and the most rares and et cetera, et cetera. I also went through and compared like several different conditions for each card. So rare extendeds, these guys got 11, I got 11, these guys only got 9. So anyway, you can look at that data and compare how everybody did one with another. And I'm an amateur programmer. I assume this data is correct, but it's possible there's some little mistakes in here. Everything that I've double checked has been just fine, so I think the data is correct. Anyway, down here I went through and I sorted everything out, and then it shows how many of each sort of card each of these 6 different people got in their boxes. So where you see an S, that means showcase. Where you see an SF, that means showcase foil. A B means borderless. You'll see a C sometimes, and that means classic module. So a BF, that means a borderless foil, but this one's just a foil, so they got 2 different black dragons in their box. This is me, by the way. I'm the 4th column. So, and then this is from what set it was in, Forgotten Realms or Forgotten Realms commander decks, right? And then this shows how many of everybody got at least one of a thing. So 4 people got one of these bag of holding, so 66.7% of the people got one in their box, right? There's a lot of cards that everybody got, but usually they're commons. But if we scroll down here, there was one rare that everybody got, which was Dungeon Descent. And these guys, they both got 2 of them, right? But anyway, you can just scroll down. This CF, that means it's classic module foil, Evolving Wilds. Another foil, Evolving Wilds, and then one classic module, non-foil, Evolving Wilds. So you can kind of see how these different sets are done. This is E means extended foil for Forsworn Paladin. So I'll just scroll down this list here and you can kind of look at all the data. I think I'll put this data up for download at the download page. It's just interesting for people to be able to see. For the record, opening up a box, you automatically lose value unless you happen to be lucky and be from Canada, right? But everybody else, when they open their boxes, they actually lost value. A lot of that is, it's kind of course, you know, because a lot of these cards won't gain in value until it's been 10, 20, 30 years. A brand new comic right off the stand is worth pretty much what you paid for it. In order for that value to increase, you have to wait 10, 20, sometimes 30, 40 years, right? So I wouldn't be too hard on Wizards of the Coast about this, or Hasbro. Also, this last piece of data, it shows how many cards did they get of a set, right? So like sometimes they got 2 cards of a set, I only counted 1. And I don't count each of the different variations. I just, did they get this name, 1T Fangblade, did they get one or didn't they? And then you would just multiply that through all the different names of cards in the set, not taking into consideration extended, not taking into consideration borderless or foil or anything like that. Just did they get one, right? And these guys got 49.2% of a set. These guys got over 50%. I got 47%. So it means that every one of those collector's boosters boxes, in it you're going to get about a half a set of cards, right? Once again, not considering borderless or extended or foil or any of that. So, I mean, when these collector booster boxes come out, they're $240 a pop. So if you need 2 of them to get a set, that's almost $500. So that's a pretty expensive set. But anyway, that's what's going on. I thought it'd be interesting to compare all this. Also, these prices, I got them all from MTG Goldfish. And one thing I noticed about the prices at MTG Goldfish is for the Forgotten Realms cards, they have different prices depending on whether or not it's borderless or extended or foil or whatever. But for the Forgotten Realms commander cards, they just offer one price. Whether or not it's foil, whether or not it's borderless, they don't change their price depending on those conditions. It's just one straight price, right? So I'm being as accurate as the data I have access to will allow me to be. Anyway, take a look. I thought it was interesting. Enjoy it. It's really hard to find data like this, so... In my opinion, this is a really fun game. I really enjoy it. The money aspect of it makes the game feel something like what the comic industry felt like back in the 90s, though. Back then, comics decided to sell themselves as a great investment strategy. They offered foil covers, cutout covers, covers that had alternate art on them. Sound familiar? They kind of got lazy and weird about the stories themselves, and they just marketed the collectability of the books. And tons of books were printed, but the quality just wasn't there, so people lost interest in the books. And more than one comic company was in danger of falling into bankruptcy. I'm pretty sure that this is why Marvel ended up selling the film rights of their characters to Sony and other entities, which led directly to the Marvel Cinematic Universe of today. Ask Marvel today what they would prefer. Would they rather have the money that the silliness of the 90s got them, or the megabucks that the MCU brought in? Marvel lost out because they got weird in the 90s, and that's what Magic feels like right now. It's a good game, but there's so much financial silliness going on that they may put the well-being of their product into danger. As things currently stand, it seems that this game is getting consistently harder to learn, and it's becoming consistently more expensive to play if you want to remain competitive. It also seems to be addictive, oftentimes leads to theft and dishonesty, and newer players are very often required to pay huge sums of money in order to begin playing with older players. If this is the sort of game Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast desire to provide to the public, they're free to do so. No laws seem to be being broken. From the player's perspective, though, there may be a problem coming that you might want to avoid for the sake of your own financial welfare. As this game gets harder and more expensive to play, newer players will become less and less interested in it. There will be fewer new players over time, and all the cards that you now own may become worth less and less. Your investments may lose their value. There's an old radio show from the 50s called X-1. One of the episodes from it was entitled The Snowball Effect. It's available on YouTube. I won't go into too much detail on the story, but I will just say that it seems to apply to the current state of Magic the Gathering. I have an idea how to fix this. Peter Adkinson, ex-CEO of Wizards of the Coast, rejected my idea once about 20 years ago, but maybe someone might be interested now. I'll talk about it in the next episode. One last note. Recently, Magic cards are sometimes being sold in these cool-looking little boxes. I picked this one up while I was in the States. I stopped using mine, though. If you have the tendency towards being a little absent-minded and you're using a box like this, depending on the enthusiasm you put out during one of these instances of absent-mindedness, you might accidentally spray down your entire room with cards. I'm speaking from personal experience, by the way. Get one of these cheaper, less cool-looking boxes. They're much safer. Thanks, everyone. Have a good week, have good games, and have a nice day.